I realise I'm in the valley of death when it comes to slots, so I'll be really short, and we'll do any questions at all. We're up on the first floor for the next 2 days, but I'll try and keep it a little bit up-tempo because I can see some of the heads going. Essentially, what I'd like to talk to you all today is it's instant digital escrow and how we can help and how we are revolutionising payments within your industry. Hopefully all you can see this, but this was back in March of last year, and this was really everything started from this post. A really good friend of mine met someone online. I'm not going to say the name of where they met because it embarrassed them, but it started in gum and ended in tree. Effectively, my friend couldn't understand really who this person was, whether they were a valid buyer, or anything to do with this potential buyer of his car. And unfortunately, it was forcibly stolen from him on a test drive of March of last year. So we kind of thought to ourselves, well, it's 2016, there's no way that people should be meeting online and something like this ultimately happens. So this was the start of everything. Unfortunately, his experience is by no means unique. So these are up-to-date stats, and it's about $110 billion worth of transactions like this being generated on classified platforms. And unfortunately, due to lack of transparency and security in traditional peer-to-peer payments, about 12% of these types of payments will end up in fraud, which, as you can see, is a $13 billion problem and a pretty big one. What we realized, there's a 170-year-old payment method that's used to secure really high-ticket items when you sell your house or you do an M&A acquisition. It's called escrow. The reason escrow isn't used in the classified world or peer-to-peer payments in general is that it's really time-consuming. So if you wanted to go to Barclays today and create an escrow payment, it would take you about 5 days to create. And unfortunately, it would also cost you £250 up front. And no one in a peer-to-peer payment is going to pay money up front to create a payment for a transaction that may not even happen. So Shieldpay, and what we've been working on for the last 15 months really, is an instant digital escrow facility that enables anyone, anywhere, to create an escrow payment in less than 10 seconds for free. It validates the identity and the trustworthiness of two unknown entities to each other through some pretty robust security checks, secures the funds from the buyer, and only releases the funds out of the system when both parties agree that the transaction's been successful. So I'm going to walk you through how this would potentially work. So to initiate a transaction, all somebody has to do after they've met someone on a classified site is to send a payment request via an email address or a mobile phone number. The recipient of that email or that introduction to the transaction then needs to go through what's called an anti-money laundering and a KYC check. This basically creates a trust environment around a peer-to-peer transaction that doesn't currently exist, but it only takes about 10 seconds. In order to enter money into the vault, or ultimately the second step in the process, in this instance, Penny would enter money into the vault through a credit card, debit card, pay by bank app with our partners at MasterCard, a direct bank transfer, or even PayPal. Once those funds have entered into the system, both people are now aware that the transaction can start. In essence, the buyer of the car has made a solid claim that they are, A, in charge, have the funds to make the transaction happen, and B, they've basically given the trustworthiness around this transaction to happen. So the buyer, once they've seen the car, let's say, they've walked around the item, they can authorize the transaction and say, I am now happy to release these funds. And the seller would then do the double authorization and say, I am now happy to release the item. Funds are then made available to the seller directly, and they can withdraw the funds whenever they like. So how does this really change the world that you guys are in? In effect, any platform anywhere in the world can take our plug-and-play or ready-made payment mechanism or get access to the rich Shieldpay API, which means a seamless integration into your platform, so the users never have to leave your ecosystem. And what it does effectively gives you this unique payment solution that does a number of things. Ultimately, it makes you transactional for the first time. It secures all your user base from fraud. And ultimately, the trust score that comes off the back of this, you can use for any transaction forever again within the platform itself. So this really is a game changer for your industry. At the moment, you're shouldering all the burden of customer support, negative PR, and earning zero revenue from a transaction. Adding Shieldpay into your world basically flips this on its head. You, in a rev share with Shieldpay, you become instantly transactional on the revenue, on the actual transaction side for the first time, as well as significantly reducing the amount of fraud that's occurring in your user base. So yes, we can help you build revenue, yes, we can secure your users from fraud, but probably of equal value, or probably more value, is the transactional data that we can provide back to you in real time. So this is the world that you currently operate in, and you do a fantastic job of enabling users to search, discover, and negotiate prices within your ecosystem. Unfortunately, what then happens, they move away from your platform and try and find a way to transact with each other, whether that's bank transfer, PayPal, you guys don't really know, and that's where the problems effectively happen. With the addition of Shieldpay, we can close the data loop. So in real time, you can see which cars are selling, who's buying them, who your top sellers are, and who your top buyers are. So it actually allows you for the first time to start optimizing platforms for sales, which is obviously really important. So this team is the patent pending technology we have. It's built and managed by a pretty exceptional team. Our CTO, for example, Jerome, was the former CTO for the whole of Amex, has built this system from scratch. It's a very rare team to have at this stage, and we work for some of the world's leading brands when it comes to financial payments. But you don't really need to take our word for it. So we're partnered with Barclays here in the UK. We're able to transact now in 42 currencies across Europe. We're partnered up with MasterCard. We hoped we'd be able to announce a partnership with a big US bank, but we can't quite yet. We're nearly there. We're fully regulated as a payment institution in the UK across Europe. We're now doing those processes in the US as well. And basically, partners around the world are starting to realize the potential of working with us at very little risk. So in summary, make this really quick. With a really simple, lightweight, free integration with Shieldpay, you can now start becoming revenue generating on the transaction itself. It's a really proactive step for all platforms to take when it comes to securing your customer base from fraud. And obviously, we can provide all the data back in real time on the transactions itself. We're upstairs. We can get you started in a matter of days. So please do come upstairs and say hello. Our mission, it's a simple one, but not an easy one, is to eliminate peer-to-peer fraud, enable everyone everywhere to transact with each other in total confidence. And Shieldpay enables all of us to buy safe, sell safe, and pay safe. Thank you very much.